Norfolk Christian schools. I've been hearing a lot of really great feedback from parents about the pivot that we had to make recently due to COVID-19 to online learning. And this is something that we've been preparing for quite a while, simply because about 6 years ago we started to develop our online capabilities in order to allow our students to continue to go to school during snow days and hurricane days and things like that. And so we had basic ability to do that pivot. And I'll tell you, online learning is more difficult than in-person learning because you have a perceived distance that you have to close that gap, and it takes extra effort to close that distance. Whereas if you're in an in-person classroom, you're able to achieve eye contact with all of your students and shorten that perceived distance. Where in an online environment, it takes a lot of extra work to keep that perceived distance small in order to help develop every aspect of the child. And so we think about education, we're thinking about the academic piece, of course, the objectives that every student needs to go through to accomplish their goals, their academic goals for the year. An incredibly important part of education is social emotional learning, helping students to be able to interact with one another in such a way that they would continue to develop and grow and mature in character and in all sorts of different ways. And at Norfolk Christian Schools, our mission is to equip ambassadors for Christ, spiritually, intellectually, and physically. And so how are we doing that? I started thinking, how are we doing that in an online environment? And so we're thinking about academic, social emotional, but we're also talking about community. Education happens within a community where you have people sort of rubbing up against one another, polishing off their sharp edges, right? And this idea of understanding that education is not just information transfer, it's philosophy transfer. If you think about how you train and educate your children, you're not just saying you need to learn academics, you're also saying you need to learn how to be. You need to learn how to be a person in the world. And that's what a community does. And so I decided to get with some directors from the school and to have them talk about what is it that they're seeing. Because teachers are busy teaching the children. So I didn't want to try to pull them away and say, what are you doing right now? But what I said was, I'm going to get these directors that have been watching, engaging, and interacting with teachers and parents and students. And I'm going to have them talk about some of the things that they're seeing, where we are able to continue to push forward our academic, our social, emotional, spiritual, and our community, even in this online environment. All right, so we're going to go to that conversation, and I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, well, here we are, ready to interview all these wonderful directors. It's just an amazing opportunity to work with these folks. I thought I'd give each one an opportunity to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Claudia Nachtigal, and I am the Chief Operating Officer.
Hello, I'm Katie Boyd, and I'm the Lower School Norfolk Campus Director.
Hello, I'm Melissa Inserra, and I am the Middle School Director.
Hi there, I'm Tim Bender. I'm the Athletic Director.
I'm Tyler Ashworth, Upper School Director.
Hello, I'm Wanda. I'm School Director at the Beach Campus.
All right, so here we are, and I've already told folks that what we're talking about today is we're talking about how we've seen our teachers in our school implement our mission in the online context that we're in currently. And so I told them that we're going to be talking about 3 areas. And these areas are the academic performance, the social, emotional, spiritual performance, not performance, but learning, and then also the community. How do we continue to develop community in this current environment? And so what we're going to do today is a free-ranging conversation, just to have you guys tell me and interact with one another what you've seen your teachers do. So let's start with academic. How have you seen your teachers perform academically in this online context? Go ahead, anybody.
Well, I think that the teachers are all very dedicated to wanting to continue the learning of our students. And a couple of great examples, both professionally and personally, would be my own fourth graders at home. They've completed writing a full biography on the missionary they read about their EL, and they even were able to dress up as their character and present as their missionary, however they saw fit. And it's just really done a great job of weaving their language arts skills with history and their expedition on ambassadorship, and then creativity, kind of putting it out there and letting the kids decide. I think our own like dress up box has seen some brighter days, but they'll clean up eventually. That's one example that I've seen out of our teachers.
One great example that I've seen in our middle school is we were supposed to go on the Washington, D.C. trip. So we had planned to do a Christian deeper learning sort of expedition based on that. Because the trip got canceled, Mrs. Harris just still wanted to go with something that was historical and also something that the kids could connect to their lives and remember. So the children are writing an American story. They're interviewing someone in their family who has lived through something monumental. So whether it be 9/11 or something in World War II. So it's a range of family members. So they get a lot of choice in that. And then the students will write and they'll give some historical background. So they'll use citations. But in addition, they'll reflect on how that parent or grandparent story has now altered their perception and where they feel like they are in God's story. And then they are also reflecting on where they feel as if this pandemic has placed them in God's story, what they can potentially do to make changes in the future.
Very cool.
In the high school, I know after speaking with teachers and watching them interact with their students, they too have been highly concerned with what the students are learning, making sure that the experience is just as good as if we were in the building, making sure that the content is still delivered. But they realize, this looks different, but as much as possible, they've tried to bring their true selves to the screen, and they have been very creative on adapting and adjusting. I've just been so proud of the teachers' work, and they've also encouraged them to get outside. I know in science, we have one science teacher who's having the students every so often go out and test for pollutants, giving that there's less traffic on the road now. And they're actually going to use that data and research and report that to an organization who's collecting that. So they're doing real world things still that really matter. Again, trying to deliver as much as possible what they would normally get. And I'm so impressed with our robotics class. They're delivering the robotic kits, and they're sanitizing them after spending a couple weeks with building a robot. They're sending the kit to the next person and making sure that's all properly sanitized. The teacher had to coordinate all the logistics and the drop off of that. That's just one example of how teachers have had to creatively and logistically think through how to make things work, and they've done such a great job.
Yeah, at the beach campus at the lower school, we've been thinking a lot about the kind of quality feedback that we're giving students academically, because I think something we learned early on was that virtual learning can become sort of a check the box. I got that assignment done, I'm handing that in, now I can go play, and we wanted to make sure that our students were continuing to do the deep thinking and the quality work that we expect of them in regular classrooms. And so we talked about how can we continue to give them some really important, challenging feedback to make sure they're really learning and they're not just, doing things, they're actually learning things. And so feedback came up. How are we challenging them? How are we looking at their work, meeting with them individually to go over that work and to give them some good feedback that will help them to revise and edit and keep going deeper. And one fun thing that came up last week in 5th grade was the assignment was to write a persuasive paragraph. and they had to choose someone, obviously, to try to convince of their argument. And the teacher was able to give lots of options for that. And one of those was to write a persuasive paragraph to me. And it was great fun for me because I had an opportunity to really engage with them and to talk with them about their argument. And of course, it was over school things they wanted me to change, like the dress code, or how to expand our library to improve learning. We got some really impressive essays, and it was just, again, it speaks back to what Melissa and Tyler were saying about students still having meaningful work to do and getting meaningful feedback, and continuing to learn deeply, to think critically, and to engage with people giving them an authentic audience. And so not just, I did my work, I passed it in, I got a grade, but really engaging with their teachers, with people outside of their classroom. That was a fun thing to do.
I'd love to talk about fine arts if I could, Dan, if you don't mind. All the fine arts teachers are still working to get their concerts and the art show completed. So it's been exciting to try to take something that's team oriented, like performance, and make it continue to be team, because the kids think, oh, I'll just submit my part. And then they realize, wait, that doesn't work. So how can I submit my part based on what that person submitted and then that person submitted? And they're each having to rely on the other classmates. So it's been really exciting to see them work through a process that cannot be individualized, that really is group learning. So I think we're gonna have some fun projects based on that.
Very cool. One question I'm sure that a lot of parents have been thinking about is, how confident are we that our students will go through their academics, the remainder from March through the end of May, and be prepared for the next grade level in the fall? What would you say to a parent who says, is my child going to be ready in the fall, when they see a lot of other, maybe their friends, kids not doing as much work or something like that? Like how confident are you that in general students will be ready for the fall?
Yeah,
I'm very confident. I'm sorry, Tyler. We feel like, we are sticking to standards and objectives that we would have typically taught in classrooms. We're just doing it in a different format. And so content is being delivered in really excellent ways, and we're giving great feedback, and students are progressing, and we feel very confident that they're going to be prepared for the next grade level easily. Yes.
To be honest with you, with the middle school kids, because they're kind of at this gap where they've exited elementary and they're preparing for high school, I feel as if this format hones their critical thinking skills even more. So they're getting assignments. I know my teachers are hitting standards. They have rolling agendas going every week for the kids. They're using different forums to submit assignments. And on top of just that is they're learning that if I run into a wall, I can't give up. I have to now reread, rethink, use my resources. So I've seen the maturity level of especially my 6th and 7th graders just completely explode through this experience. So something that it really has been a blessing for our kids.
Yeah, that's good. I think it definitely has forced everyone to be a bit more organized, for sure. And I like what you said, of critically thinking. And but I would say, just like Wanda, it hasn't really changed all that much. I mean, teachers have been teaching, and it's just been through the computer screen, but they have been delivering instruction just like they were when we were in the building. And I'm extremely confident. And I've seen how they've been preparing their classes through their weekly agendas, and those agendas are well thought out and plans and covering all the objectives that students need. So I know 100% that our students will be ready for the next level, whether that's in the next grade or beyond high school.
Excellent.
And I think something that's been interesting for younger kids too is kind of the digital ability to communicate. That's new for a lot of our kids. Like Melissa was saying, when you have a question, emailing a teacher, that's a new concept for the children, or wanting to set up a Google Meet for more FaceTime. All of those are very new to kids, and they're learning how to advocate for that, which is always a good quality to have. Of course, we would prefer that they could advocate and communicate in person, but we are proud of the work that the kids are doing to grow in that area. And the teachers, they're learning how their different material comes across and how they might be able to communicate differently. So in some ways, it's not only preparing the kids for next year, I think it's preparing the teachers to have a unique insight into their students and how they receive their communications or their feedback.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. And I'm very excited about that. That is one thing that we've talked about in our meetings is making sure that we're continuing to move forward, continuing to provide value, and showing that our kids will be ready for the next level. So that's exciting. All right, let's go to the next topic, which is social emotional learning. And how have you seen teachers, staff interacting with our students in developing the social, emotional, spiritual aspect of their being?
Well, we know as lower school directors, but really all of us, that this is a really important area. We know that we have to teach the whole child. We can't just rely on the academic content side because the social emotional really does affect intellectual growth. And so it's part of brain development that we need to do all of these things together. And so it's been really important. We've found that our students are really missing the collaboration and the contact, the discussion, the back and forth that they typically have in a classroom, personally, face to face. And so this was a big idea for us. How can we continue to engage students socially, giving them forums and opportunities to be with one another, to talk about their ideas, but also individually. How are we ministering to children spiritually, and how are we ministering to them personally, socially? I had an event this week where we had a student who was engaging with their teacher in a one-on-one meeting, and he wanted to play the piano for her. You know, and he's very gifted, and this was an area that he is one of his strengths. And she was delighted just to sit and listen and watch him use his gift on the piano. And I thought that was really sweet. And that was a very, very personal connection that they had that really boosted his confidence and made him feel like she really loved him and was interested in his giftings. And so that was a great way just to connect with him emotionally and to give him some comfort during this time where maybe he's been a little anxious.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the teachers are continuing their either worship time with the kids or some form of a check-in. And it's neat to hear some of that feedback, because sometimes the teachers, they don't know because they're not in front of their kids what the kids are receiving. But I had a 5th grade teacher who received an email from a student saying, this song really spoke to me, or this verse really meant a lot to me. I was struggling. And it's just created that kind of level of spiritual intimacy that we can continue in a different way. And that's been neat. I know we had a 3-year-old parent send in a video of a child who loved the song Raise a Hallelujah. And he was just talking about being brave because he knew Jesus. And for a 3-year-old to do that through a worship song is just incredible. It's what we're going for. So it's really neat.
Yeah, and just to brag on the lower school a little bit, obviously I have 2 lower school students in my home, and I've just been so blessed by the lower school teachers that have, continued to do morning meetings and having a prayer kit for each morning and taking time to pray for the kids. I know that's made my own kids feel so special. So really want to just say thank you to all the lower school teachers. And in the high school, I know how important it has been for the teachers through the Google Meets just to take a little bit of time just to check in to see how is everyone doing, to start with prayer. And with the implementation of C-Day, many of the students wanted that time just to either, meet with their a small group leader to potentially still have small groups, or to be able to just chat with one another. And so C-Day has given us some of that flexibility. And also, I really love that idea because it allows for a bit more time and space for our students and the whole community really to uh, listen to chapel, to reflect on it, and to take that in. And then the students, the worship team, they've been so quick to step up and say, "Let us lead worship," and we've been able to allow them to do that with Miss Nachtigal's help. So thank you, Miss Nachtigal. And you know, they're still hungry to grow spiritually, and we want to give them avenues to do that. And been so blessed by seeing that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I just wanted to add too that I've watched the students grow in their own care for each other in new ways. You know, in classes, we're talking, we're having class, and then, you know, when I offer questions, many of it is, how are you guys doing? How can I pray for you? The kids really are stepping up, and I call it the bike gang of my neighborhood. I live near the school, and our students literally parade around all day long on bikes asking, how are you? How can I pray for you? They want to connect. And so they just have this little parade. And it's been really exciting to see, I think, students connecting more to each other in many ways.
Yeah.
Like on deeper levels, more authentic connection than they're doing at school, because they know that it's a part of who God's made them to be. So
Yeah.
I've been very encouraged by that.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Is I'm finding children now that they're learning that, you know, the hype of being on a screen is over for them. Now it's become work, much like it is for adults, and that they're craving just human connection in some way. So I've seen even middle school students, they know it's a student's birthday, so they set up a surprise meet online where they're singing happy birthday and presenting little posters of what I love about you, what giftings I see in you. Additionally, our teachers are asking the same questions. How can I help you? And how can I pray for you? And one thing that really touched me last night is a little girl of whom I haven't actually taught in years was feeling alone and isolated. And there was a family, something that was on her heart. And she reached out to people who'd been her mentors before. And she said, can you pray for me at this time? So our students more than ever are craving connection, but because they've been taught so well at Norfolk Christian is that we are the church for them as well. Like we are their family and their community of love, is that they still continue to reach out to their mentors. It's been beautiful to see.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yeah, and
had
I
an
hope,
opportunity. And go ahead, Tyler.
I was just going to say real quick, I hope everyone has had opportunity to look at the work that Ms. Jervy has been doing in the Counselor's Corner, and she's been really faithfully putting effort into that to make sure that students have resources and to deal with some of the stress and anxiety, maybe even the depression. Sharing her professional expertise through that, and she's having lots of great conversations with students. So anyone who needs her services, she's been available. And also Michelle Sandwell for spiritual support. She's been praying with groups of people and individually as well. We do really care for the students' social, emotional, and spiritual growth, as Wanda said, because it's a good school cares more than just academic success. It's the full picture.
That's right.
Yeah, we had an opportunity in second grade for our teacher has put as part of her daily agenda, she has a section in her lesson plan for students to engage with their peers, and she calls it Yay, Hooray, Great Idea. And her students submit videos to one another, to the agenda. So they do all kinds of just creative things, whether it's, you know, here's how to decorate your workspace, you know, or here's how to make a paper flower for your Mother's Day. But it's a way where they can kind of take control of part of the learning. They feel like they're contributing to the learning and the lesson plan. And it's a way to really help them hone their communication skills and their critical thinking and the collaboration, all the things that are, you know, we typically do in a classroom. So that's been a fun way for them to engage with one another as well.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing. The teachers have been trying to purposely design some group work to get them engaged with one another, socializing. You know, I think of English and Mrs. Graves teaching Macbeth and doing group work, and they have to record videos themselves presenting and working collaboratively together. And I know that has really helped them still feel connected.
Yes.
And just real quick on the athletic side, you know, one of the things that I've always found special about Norfolk Christian and just listening to everyone of the directors speak is just the heart for the student and the relationship that comes from our community. And on an athletic side, you know, we've really had to recreate the wheel in many ways, but there's so many coaches that have just kind of started small groups. I know Coach Colby is leading a 30-day challenge with the baseball team, and Coach Ingram's held a virtual movie night with the girls, and Coach Morrison is leading a devotion with the middle school softball team. And then one of the things that has just truly blown me away is to see, you know, our student athletes leading and running and facilitating an FCA huddle where they lead the conversation. They're leading the interview. They're working together. Last week or 2 weeks ago, they got the opportunity to get together. There was about 30 students on the call, and they interviewed James Michael McAdoo, and they spent time talking about God and what it looked like during this time to be a believer, and what can they do to focus to continue to develop themselves as student athletes during this time. And then this past week they got together, and there was again 30 more students on there that were working together and actually did a workout session, which was awesome. I mean, it was incredible just to see all of these students interacting with one another and working through a workout, and then finishing it with a plank challenge in which Georgia Newman crushed it with like an 8 minute.
She's a beast.
Just amazing. But I think it speaks to the heart of Norfolk Christian. And, you know, I hear Mr. Tubb say it all the time, and talking about just that relationship piece and how special that truly is. And just to see the heart of the directors and the heart of the teachers and the heart of the coaches really digging into this time, and the relationship piece is just really special.
Yeah, through this whole thing, I can't say enough how I've worked in different schools, and I've watched just different things over the years. And Norfolk Christian, in my opinion, just does such a great job of building relationship with their kids from very young ages on, so that by the time they hit those middle and high school grades, they really do just take the baton and they lead each other, really as true ambassadors are supposed to do. So it's been chilling to watch them, just how well they reach out to each other and they speak the word of God to each other. It's been beautiful to watch and witness.
All right, excellent. So the last point that we want to talk about a little bit, and we've touched on this a little bit already, but is the importance of community. One of the things when this whole thing started is I know that we met and I talked about making sure that we double down on the importance of each other, and how this community is so valuable. God put this in place in 1952, and he's been growing it, and he will sustain it. I always say that God doesn't require us to be successful. He requires us to be faithful, and he provides the increase. And so as we walk in faith one day at a time in community, what are some ways in which you've seen this community just develop its love for each other, and the things that we've done? Not necessarily the teachers are doing their work, but what are some things that we as a school have done to try to develop our community and value each member of our community?
Well, something really cool, because our assistants have also really missed the students because they're used to working with them and walking alongside them. And they've really taken the helm of helping the teachers to get supplies ready, and then either to prepare them and drop them off or prepare them for pickup. And it's a little thing, but it's a big deal. It's their way of loving on them and reaching out. Our students are used to their prayer treat. So the assistants have all rallied together to kind of send out a little note to the different students just to let them know they're thinking of them and they're praying for them. And just a small thing that is a big deal for our kind of community building. And we had some 5th grade parents come to pick up the supplies one day, and their kids sat on top of the vans and were just hanging out, social distancing, 6 feet apart. And it just speaks to the openness our community can have to rally for each other and be together, even though we're not physically together.
Yeah, I know we have had our admin assistants from each division make personal phone calls to check in on everyone, to say, you know, how are you doing with school, but also how are you doing in life, and how can we pray for you, and is there any way that we can come around and support anything that you need. And then we've been communicating that with one another and with the teachers if needed. And then if we have a student who has had some kind of need, or they're struggling, then we've made additional phone calls and follow-up communications with those students. So just taking the extra steps to really show that we care and that we're important to one another has been important. It's really been key for us.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we talk about is I truly want students to be not just marked absent but missed.
Yes.
Right. And this is an opportunity for us to show them we do miss them. You know, because there are students that, you know, that need that extra helping hand, or that need someone to call them and say, how are you today? You know, and we've really tried to lean into that. So yeah, I appreciate that very much.
I've enjoyed very much whenever I see a student struggling, in my heart, it always comes across is this student is not failing. There's something that's causing the student to be struggling. So to be honest with you, my favorite part of the week is when I place phone calls to parents and reach out to children through emails and just find a way to support them, and even frustrated parents, to remind them that some of this is normal. Some of this is normal. And if your child isn't going to listen to you today, let's take the stress off of you and let's maybe meet together. So we've had some meets virtually, and it's just been beautiful where parents later will email and say, thank you, because I'm getting my home back, because it wasn't me telling my child what to do anymore, but it was somebody else trying to guide them. So one thing that I know we all agree with is that a child who is doing poorly is not failing. That child just needs help in a more unique way. And I think all of our team of educational directors have reached out to kids and families that way to let them know that we love them and that we want them to thrive.
You know, Melissa, I love that. You know, really stirred me in this way, is that as coaches, we've kind of doubled down on trying to find and reach the heart of the student, and really focused in on a platform that's through FCA, and it's 3-dimensional. And now our coaches are really trying to double down on what it looks like to be a godly leader in this school, and how to reach and touch each student right where they're at. So rather than, you know, this time just kind of passing us by, but really trying to dig in to be the best coach, best teacher that we could possibly be during this time, and just continue to pour out to the community. So I really believe that God has opened the door for us as a group, just dig in and really touch the community in a special way, in a way that only Norfolk Christian can do through God. It's just awesome. Love hearing that.
It's very true.
And I think it's really important too, the way that we're thinking about teachers. You know, this has been a very challenging time for them as well. And really, as administrators, thinking about how can I support my teachers? How can I minister to them? How can I encourage them? Because they are working very hard. And
Yes.
so, you know, that's really important. And some things that we've tried to do is just having, you know, virtual lunches together so we can just talk, you know, things other than content and academics, you know, or, you know, giving them one of the first weeks, I could really sort of see the stress setting in and just, you know, saying, you know, everybody go out to Lolly's and get some ice cream this weekend. I'm gonna cover you, you know, and just giving them a little treat that way so that they can have time with their families to de-stress. So really thinking carefully about how to also minister to teachers during this time has been really important.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we've all been concerned with is how we celebrate students as they are having monumental milestones in their life, 5th grade, 8th grade, seniors. And we spent a lot of time talking about how to celebrate kids, and we did the senior signs, but also making sure that everybody gets to experience, again, just that memory of, I've worked really hard and I am commencing, I am about to start something new. And so we are going to and are excited about making plans to celebrate these students. We think that kids and their families will be very blessed by what we have in store. And then I was also thinking just about that God's truth, you know, all truth is God's truth, right? And even though the world talks about no child left behind, the way they've gone about that is so wrong, right? It's sort of like nobody's going to fail. We're just going to push everyone forward. It's more like just whatever, get them through. And I really see us modeling, what does it really look like to say no child left behind, that we are going to provide everything these kids need to get them to the next step and not just willy-nilly pass them along. But what are these family needs? What does the student need? Do they need technology? You know, I am so grateful for my team who is hand delivering Chromebooks and hotspots, and we can do things that no other school systems are able to do. And so I feel like the Lord is modeling what it looks like to really care for the child.
That's right.
That's good.
That is so true.
And then as one of the things that we've talked about is what lessons are we learning through what we're doing right now that we can carry into the future? What are some of the things that, you know, that maybe our model has changed a little bit, our mode has changed a little bit? What are some of the things that we've learned that said, you know what, I like that, let's keep doing that? Like, for example, one of the things that I'm thinking about is the calls. The fact that we're calling families on a regular basis. I'm thinking, why didn't we do that before, right? It's just now it's like common sense. Of course, we're going to make phone calls to parents and check in and see how they're doing on a regular rotating basis, so people don't get left out. So that's one thing. And so, what are some of the things that you can think of that we've learned, or even just an emphasis that we've come up with in this time that we can continue moving forward?
I know for me specifically, again, middle grades it's just a tricky time. They're adjusting socially to something so different. But anytime I see a child who has a low grade or even something outside of their normal or a failing grade, again, my approach is certainly going to be, how can I help you? What can I do to support you and loop in that way? Like not just track as a number, you know, as Claudia was saying with the idea of no child left behind. Our kids are not spreadsheet kids. They are human beings and they are children of God. And I can't wait to be there to support them.
Absolutely.
And I would say in this new format, we've had to make our expectations explicit, very clear, so that it limits confusion. And that's one thing that I think teachers are going to take away from this and continue to do in the future, where it goes beyond just posting, some things in the grade book on NCS Connect of, assignments and homework, but really they've learned some new skills like the scrolling agenda and having the appropriate links on there, and the due dates kind of clearly marked out. These sort of things have really helped students be successful, and I think that will carry on into the future.
I think a lot of Lauren's, oh, go ahead, Claudia.
No, you go ahead, Katie.
I was just going to say Lauren Jerfy's like digital citizenship. I think that's something that we really need to double down more on in the lower school and probably everywhere in general. But I think that's been a huge blessing in this, to reveal resources and ways we can have conversations about it and give tangible examples for kids and families of why digital citizenship matters as a follower of Jesus. And I think that's a huge blessing. And then with the feedback piece, we are all about the whole child. So I've gotten the opportunity that even in some of the harder conversations where a parent or a child's not feeling that way, how do we walk through that? It's not easy, and it's can get a little uncomfortable, but if, as followers of Christ, we have to walk through it. So how can a teacher repair that relationship, or how can they engage the student in a way that shows that heart that all of our teachers have for the kids and for our community? And even though there have been some hard conversations, few but hard, I think that's good to walk through, because it makes the community stronger when we can humble ourselves to hear our families well.
One thing I love is, like, of course, the word community, but what this digital format forces all of us to realize is none of us are working in vacuums. So there are so many times where I'll talk to a parent or I'll talk to a child and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to call you back because I need to reach out to Mrs. Sandwell or Mrs. Jerfy or Mr. Tubbs or Mrs. Knott. Like, I need to reach out to somebody else in this building who may be able to provide you another support system. So when we're in like real community and we're back in our building together, I would just really point out the fact that everybody is working in unison together to really develop these kids. It's not one of us is doing it independently. It is a whole team, and I love it for that.
And I think one of the things, Dan, you talk about a lot is the idea of excelling still more. And I feel like if anything, this moment has put a pause on so many things we took for granted and did because they were always what we did. That we have had to question every single thing we do and say, is that the best practice for that? Is that the best way to do that? I actually think in some ways what we're providing is better, because we have said, what is it that our kids want? What is it that our families need? What is the very best service that we can offer? And I feel like we have sharpened ourselves for the future, and just our own acknowledgement that without Christ, our school is nothing. So those two things combined, we want to provide the most excellent education that you can even get in this area. And we want to do it all in the name of Christ. I've seen those two things heightened in ways I couldn't have fathomed or asked for.
That's right.
And then the next thing is just, oh my gosh, just the simple idea of the way we've digitized things that should have always been digitized. And just that we are going to be better. Our planet's going to be better off because we've realized, why weren't we doing that digital already? And so I'm excited about what this has for our school, because I think we've streamlined, and I think we have decided these are really the pillars of who we are. And we're going to push those forward in the name of the Lord. And I just can't think of a better thing to say about that.
Amen.
Amen and amen, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, on that note, I think that's an excellent way to end. I am going to, you guys look great, by the way. You're amazing. I love working with you guys and the rest of the executive team that's not on this call. And I really am, it's a privilege to work with you, and I appreciate each of you. Let's close in prayer, and then we'll go. Gracious Heavenly Father, I praise you because you are good and you are sovereign. And those two things come together in ways that we can't ever imagine or even think. but we know, Lord, that you are in control of all things. You're in control of this pandemic. You're in control of Norfolk Christian. And as I said before, you don't call us to be successful. You call us to be faithful. And I know, and you promise to provide any increase. And as a result, all increase is a result of you, not us. I pray, Lord, that you would just continue to help us to walk in your steps, Lord, that we might love you more. And Lord, as a result of this time, that we would come out of this time better as a school, closer to you and our relationship with you, Lord, and that more students would be able to continue to experience what it's like to be equipped as ambassadors for Christ, intellectually, spiritually, and physically. Lord, I just pray that I thank you and bless each of these folks on the call today, and bless our teachers, I pray, bless our families, our students, Lord, that your will be accomplished in all things, that we might serve you well as long as you would have us here. In Christ's name, amen. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. I always love talking to people and hearing about their experiences and understanding what's going on. And remember that you are a child of God, and your purpose is to glorify him and enjoy him forever. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.